what about the money? Money is just a representation of something, right? I mean, you mentioned power.
I think it's a measure of something.
Okay.
It's a lagging indicator of progress. It's a lagging indicator of change. It's a lagging indicator of value. But the key word there is lagging. So when you create something that's structurally important and changes something for the better, it has an inherent value. Some of that is expressed in monetary terms, revenue and profits. So if you actually have a more basic desire, which is to get rich, then I think you should focus on what I just talked about, which is upending these hierarchical systems in a bottoms-up democratic way. If you care about social progress, you should focus on what I just talked about, which is upending hierarchies and bottoms-up. If you care about equality, you should focus on this. I mean, so all roads lead back to this same core principle. It is the most important business model of the next century. It's the most important philosophical and moral decision that's being asked and answered every day. And so to me now, at some level, it's become relatively obvious that this is where everybody should be spending their time. And I just think that the result of that change will be a more symmetric and fair world. An artifact of that will be that some of us will probably aggregate tens or hundreds of billions of dollars in the process. And why that's important is best related by a relatively well-known quote from Nathan Rothschild. Nathan Rothschild, sort of scion of the British part of the banking dynasty, the Rothschild dynasty. And he was asked about his perspectives on, the person, the ruler of the British Empire, and he said something to the effect of, he doesn't care who rules the empire. He who controls the money supply controls the British Empire. I control the British money supply, was his comment. And that it is even more true today than it was back then. So the reason why the Kochs have as much power as they do is because they've aggregated as much capital as they have. The reason why Bill Gates is as powerful and important as he is because he has aggregated capital. So we are in a war of ideas, the arbiter of which, in part, will be the capital that one brings to affecting those ideas and bringing them to being. So when you put all of these things together, if you believe, again, as I do, that we are better off in a more equitable, fairly distributed world, and frankly, I come from this perspective not because I'm like some bleeding heart that wants to see all of this stuff. I couldn't care less about any of that. I'm actually a little bit more Darwinian, and I'm like, how interesting would it be for all of us to run a race, because I suspect some of the people who would win these races are very atypical than the folks that have historically won the race. And that, to me, that delta and that change and that chaos is really interesting. And I just want to be in a position in my lifetime to observe it. Because I suspect that the sort of prototypical, person that would have otherwise gone to a very good, private high school and gone to an Ivy League school and, worked at an investment bank, then got an MBA, and now all of a sudden is in control of something, is probably not the person that will be in charge in the future. And I think that that's a really interesting thing to play out. And it probably won't be a guy, and he probably won't be white, and all of these things are actually important reallocations and redistributions of power.
So you've been outspoken about the Trump administration's position on immigration, on a number, these things are going to collide in government and business, right?
Yeah.
It's happening now.
Yeah.
So what do you want these future business leaders to do about it once they get into that spot?
Get the money. Get the money, and then let's get around a table and let's create new rules. Literally that simple. Get the fucking money. I'm serious. Do not get it. It is going to be made. It is going to be allocated. And you have a moral imperative to make sure that if you have a point of view that matters and you want to reflect it, you get it. I'm going to go get it. Other people are going to go get it. And then it will be about a competition of views. And don't wrap yourself in all this liberal kind of bullshit about oh my God, money, blah. No, stop. Here's how the fucking world works, okay? It drives the world for better or for worse. Economic incentives drive entire swaths of populations to behave in very, very predictable And then when you take it away, unpredictable ways. Ask anybody in your class that's from a developing nation. Ask anybody in your class who has seen that play out from where they're from. So that's what you have to do. You got to go and get it. If you control the capital and you have a point of view, you can now, then the question is, don't be a sellout. Whatever your worldview is, you should be spending time to think about what that is, so that when you control some of these purse strings, you push that view into the world. I will never judge you, and you should not judge me for what that worldview is. But the point is, the more diversity of those views, the more rational actors we have, and the more of a balanced, fair system. That is what diversity really means to me. It doesn't mean let's manage back to a quota. It doesn't mean okay, we need a black guy, a brown guy, we need a few. That's not what it means. This is what it means. Right? There are people in this audience that have probably dealt with the same kind of life that I've dealt with. You have a very unique worldview that matters. And in the absence of capital, you're irrelevant. With capital, you're powerful. And then you decide. In small ways, in medium-sized ways, in large ways, right? It just depends on the scale of capital that you have. And so that's what's necessary now in capitalism, which is that we have to come back to what is it really? Is it an economic system? Yes, but it is a philosophy as well, right? And it's a philosophy that says we will vote for the change we intend based on the views that we have. And when you look at the most successful people that operate in these tentacles, that's what they do. Look at the Koch brothers. That's what they do. They have built a network of influence based on capital. Their worldview is propagated into the world at an unbelievably aggressive rate that has been compounding for decades. That is genius. It is genius. It doesn't matter whether you agree with their worldview. The question is, what's the counterweight to their worldview? Can you name one? Can you name a group of people that operate in the exact same way, methodically, meticulously assembling capital, influence, assets, who believe the opposite? Irrespective of what you think of the Kochs, you want both views out in the world, at scale. Well, right now you have this and you don't have this. And there are many examples of that. And so get the money and don't lose your moral compass when you do.